Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition right here on Thumb Coast TV. I'm Brady Beedon. He's Dennis Stuckey, and what a week 4 it was in the Blue Water area. Lots to talk about. We'll get to Richmond's big win, Cros-Lex, with not just an upset win, but an upset domination that I don't think we expected. But we'll start as we do in the MAC. All 5 MAC teams won. Northern maybe had the most impressive of those 5 wins. They go down to Cousino, a 35-22 win. Now, while it was a 2-score win, essentially they got a pick 6 to seal the game in the final couple minutes. So it was a back-and-forth game the whole time. Northern's defense steps up at the right time. Their offense finds the end zone 4 times. Thumbs up from this side. That's what they needed to do to validate the Utica Ford win.
Yeah, and this is a big win for Cousino, or for Northern over Cousino, for the blue standings, because it now gives Northern kind of the fast track, because PH still has to play Cousino. The advantage there is I think the game will be at Memorial Stadium. So it just makes this Northern PH game, once again, look like the blue title comes through the Port Huron Area School District for like the 6th year in a row or something like that now. One of these 2 teams is going to win it, and the winner of Friday's game is going to have the fast track. But I think Northern is getting better. I think they have proved now 2 weeks in a row that their offense is better and that they can score, and that whatever was happening to them in the first 2 weeks, they've kind of gotten it figured out. And while they gave up the most points they've given up this season. In fact, they gave up more points to Cousino than they'd given up to their other 3 opponents. It was still a big defensive play that helped them seal that win.
Absolutely. We'll go to PH because I think we're going to talk about the Crosstown Showdown for a while. PH, a business-like win, 24-0 over Fraser. Nothing overly flashy. They didn't blow them out of the water, but PH was never in danger in this game. They shut out the Ramblers. It's what you expect. You're coming off a big win on the road, and for a young team, it's a mature win because this is a trap spot. Again, go down to Mott, you get a 1-score win. You have Northern next week. This would have been a very easy game to look past and win and be in a 14-10 game, and we need to find a way to pull out a big play at the end. They don't. They take care of business and a clean 3-score win.
Yeah, and I like this win. Their defense actually has, I think, played pretty well through the first 3 weeks, but they had been giving up a lot of points for whatever reason. And to get the shutout of Fraser, and I know Fraser's not a great offense, but shutouts are a big deal and they're not easy to get. So I like that part of it, that their defense finally got rewarded for playing well. And then the offense did what it's been doing every week except week 1, where they were outmatched against Anchor Bay. But, 3 scores. Joey Gilbert's doing a nice job. Price had a big game. So I also think they're starting to figure things out. And it's an interesting matchup this week because you got you pointed it out on the podcast, you got a veteran Northern team. They got a lot of guys on their team that have played in this Crosstown Showdown. PH is young. Are they young enough, Brady, to not know any better, or are they young enough to get scared? And that's what I'm interested in finding out in this game, because their line on both sides of the ball has been terrific this year, and they've got 2-3 really, I think they've got a freshman in there and some sophomores.
Their defensive line is sophomore, freshman.
Yeah,
And it's been the strength of that defense. It has taken over games at times. But you're right. Crosstown Showdown, 7 o'clock right here on Thumb Coast TV. You can also listen to the game with Dennis on Get Stuck on Sports Stream 1. It's going to be a toss-up game. Coming into the year, man, we liked Northern in this matchup. Then Northern had an oopsie in week 2. They've kind of made good on that. But now coming into this game, I don't have a read yet. Dennis, you haven't gone out to talk to the coaches at practices. That should give you a little more clarity. But this is, again, going to be another chapter in what has been the golden age of the Crosstown Showdown, which is about a decade long now. I really don't know what to expect. I do think the defenses have the edge in this game.
Yeah, I would be surprised in a really high-scoring game, but I would still think you need to get into the 20s to win this football game this week. Should be a lot of fun. And I'll point out this, though. If Lincoln Watkins shows up and plays this year like he did in last year's game, Northern will be tough.
Northern obviously will be, but PH, it's starting to click. And Coach Perkins told us way back at the start of camp, maybe after week 1, he's like, I'm not sure when it will click, but when it does, look out. And he wasn't lying. And like, this was a young team that I knew was going to have growing pains. Dennis, we went to camp and we saw that there was talent there. They were just a little green. And week 1, they took it on the chin. I thought it would be about week 4 or 5, right about now, when they started to figure it out. I didn't think it'd be week 2. And they have had some impressive wins. Fitz continues to look like a very impressive win. Mott is always going to be a one, especially when you go down there. If they beat Northern, with a team this young and is only getting better, they're going to be a scary proposition, and you would not want to face them.
Yeah, because, again, as you say, they're going to get better and better, I think, week to week. But this will be, I think, a really good game. I also think that it'll probably be a very close game, very low scoring, and obviously things like penalties and turnovers. Whoever can hang on to the ball and keep their emotions in check, they're going to be the football team that comes away with the prize.
All right, that's going to be a big one. We'll recap that on next week's show. Talk about Marysville. They got a needed win over was 0-3, now 0-4 Grosse Pointe North team. And while the record doesn't mean it's an impressive win, everyone we've talked to has said Grosse Pointe North, they're not world beaters, but they're a solid football team. They've come up short in a couple of tough games. Marysville gets the 28-13 win. They shut out the Norsemen in the second half, and I think a much-needed win after a heartbreaking loss down at Fitz a week ago.
Yeah, this easily could have gone the wrong way for Marysville after they blew the lead the week before at Fitz. This was a tight game at halftime. It was 14-13, but the Vikings said, nope, this is not going to happen, and they came out and dominated the second half of this game and got a very important win in the Gold. And they have some important games coming up in the Gold, but this is a nice win. I'm going to score this as a quality win. One of the things that I hadn't really given Marysville credit yet to this point, in the first 3 weeks they played 3 teams that were combined 10-2. So they have had a tough schedule. And again, I know Grosse Pointe North 0-4, but they've played 4 really tight games. And the 2 people who I trust told me Grosse Pointe North plays good football.
So that's a very nice win for Marysville. They'll go down to Lakeshore this week. That's kind of a game you're expecting them to win. Far and away, probably their easiest opponent thus far, although playing in the Gold, you don't get any absolute slam dunks like last year, but still, I'd be disappointed if they didn't come back from St. Clair Shores with a win.
Yeah, this is the team that everybody picked to finish last in the Gold, Lakeshore.
Well, them or Tower, yeah.
And Tower is probably even weaker, but again, the soft teams in the Gold are going to beat the soft teams in the Silver.
Absolutely. Speaking of soft teams from the Silver, not a lot to talk about here. I mean, St. Clair shuts out East Point 45-0. Marine City 50, Centerline 14. That's the first loss for Centerline of the season. We're not really surprised by either of those results. St. Clair, even with a backup quarterback, Jackson Turnbull looked fine against Marine City. Looks fine here against East Point. They get the shutout, which I guess a thumbs up because East Point, after being shut out all of last year, hadn't been shut out through 3 weeks. But, yeah, St. Clair was never losing this game ever.
The St. Clair defense had given up a lot of points through 3 weeks. They needed a shutout. And so that's what I really like about this result. Actually, the 45 points is less than what I thought they'd score in this game. But, again, backup quarterback, his first true start. Like, he was kind of thrown in to the Marine City game. And Marine City, this is at least 4 weeks in a row with 50 points.
Yeah, they're off.
They've gone off.
I mean, we kind of expected it. Like, all right, the St. Clair one, maybe we weren't expecting them to put 50 up on them. But I know Centerline was 3-0. Their 3-0 was not very impressive. And, you know, Marine City, I said last week, you're MAC Silver champs. Now you're super duper MAC silver champs, because if there was any team that had an iota of a chance to threaten the Mariners, it was Centerline, and they didn't really threaten the Mariners. Now, St. Clair has to go down to Centerline next week, and while I think St. Clair can pull out the win, very bad math. Well, the math's good, but the logic isn't. Marine City beat Centerline and St. Clair by the same amount of points. So if you want to build a case for Centerline to have a chance, it's at Centerline. It's not a great spot to play. Maybe if I'm trying to sell you this pen and say this is going to be an interesting game. But even with Farkas probably in a cast, I don't know if he's going to be playing quarterback, but I think he'll be on the field. I don't know. I don't think Centerline will keep it close. It'll be closer than 36, but I don't think it'll be one that St. Clair's sweating at the end.
No, yeah, I expect St. Clair to go there and get a win, although, yeah, probably not 50-0, but maybe closer to 35-20.
Now, if their defense holds up again this week, I'll be a little more impressed, because holding East Point to 0, while I'm glad they did it, because it's better than the alternative, doesn't really move the needle. Marine City, they host South Lake. They're really not going to be tested in their next 3 weeks.
No,
their next big game is Notre Dame Prep in Week 8. They're going to win the next 3 games by a combined 150 points.
Yeah, this could be Week 5 of 50 points or better.
If there is anyone that is injured or banged up, has a couple extra bruises, this is the time you get them healthy. You get them ready for 2 tough games at the end of the year, going to Notre Dame Prep and hosting Marysville, because they will beat South Lake, Sterling Heights, and East Point with their backups. And Marine City will be 6-1 going into week 8 of the season. I have no qualms about declaring that right now. Before we finish up this segment, Dennis, it was another tough one for Cardinal Mooney on Saturday. They fell to Shrine 48-0. Shrine has started to, they're not what they once were, but they're also not as low as they were just a couple years ago.
Yeah, and Mooney helped them out. They had 4 turnovers in this game and set up Shrine for some easy points. They had a big 27-point second quarter and had the game 41-0 by halftime.
Yeah, it's Mooney. I mean, it was a team that was kind of rebuilding, and then you had injuries on top of that. It's a tough combination. When you're a small school, if you lose a couple guys, hurts a lot more than if you're a D2, D3 school and you lose a couple guys. And unfortunately for Cardinal Mooney, they have to go on the road. They go to Waterford, Our Lady of the Lakes, who's actually had a decent season. They're 3-1. Now, their 3-1 isn't amazing, but it's still better than what Mooney's done. That's going to be hopefully a better road trip for Mooney.
Yeah, but Lakes is one of the teams in that league that's turned it around at least for 4 weeks in this season. Cabrini's 4-0 and just beat Clarkston Everest. And don't look now, but is for the first time in the history of their program, Clarkston Everest having a down season.
It may look like that. They're 1-3 right now, and they're not usually 1-3.
No.
So that'll do it for all the Mac and Mooney portion of this. We'll talk a lot about the BWAC. Richmond with its biggest win in years. Cros-Lex, a Lazarus-like comeback win to maybe save their season. Talk about all that and more on the other side right here on the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition right here on Thumbcoast TV.
From doctor's appointments to work, shopping, and dining adventures, Blue Water Area Transit buses are the lifeline of our community. Depend on us for a ride that connects you to life's essentials. Blue Water Area Transit. Ride the wave.
Riding the bus will avoid the hustle and save you lots of dough. Road rage, don't chance it. Ride Blue Water Transit everywhere you go.
Welcome back to the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition, right here on Thumbcoast TV. Brady, Beedon, Dennis Stuckey. Let's go to the BWAC, and what a week it was for the BWAC. We'll start with the Richmond Blue Devils. Conservatively, their biggest win in 5 years. You could make the argument maybe their biggest win as many as 10 years as they knock off Armada to win the jug for the first time since 2019. They'd never gone that long without it. They get their first win over a top-tier BWAC opponent in what feels like 6 years. They get the win by a final score of 24-17. They led for about 30 seconds in this game, but it was the right 30 seconds. And Dennis, you were at this game. Richmond has kind of arrived, and now it's can they stay on top?
Yeah, Richmond played really well in this game. Their defense impressed me, their run defense, especially between the tackles. Armada is used to running the ball down people's throats. We're used to watching them run the ball down people's throats, and they could not run the ball down Richmond's throat. And then it was obvious that at least on that night, Richmond had the best player on the field, or certainly the most dynamic player in Dom Benetti. He's not really a quarterback, but boy, has he played that position really well, doing it for the first time in his career. And after throwing a 70-yard pick six to open the ball game, the very next time he had his hands on the ball, he ran it 80 yards and immediately tied the ball game. And from that point on, Armada built up a 10-point lead, 17-7. But it was Armada who had the opportunity to run away with this game. And Richmond's defense made stops, and then Benetti hit a 48-yard touchdown pass. It was a beautiful throw to get it to 17-13 at halftime. Scoreless third quarter, but you could see that the Richmond defense was starting to shift the momentum, and the field position was starting to change, because Richmond spent most of the first half behind their own 30-yard line, and most of the second half starting closer to midfield and sometimes in Armada territory. They had to settle for a field goal very early in the fourth. They were out at the 4-yard line. I thought they might go for the touchdown. They kicked the field goal to make it 17-16, and it ended up working out for them, because then with 45 seconds left to go, they had the ball, and Benetti scored on a 10-yard run that, again, was a pretty incredible run. And they made the 2-point conversion, and they won 24-17, sealing it with their defense, getting an interception so they could knee the ball.
So Richmond now 4-0. They have wins over St. Clair, Yale, Cros-Lex, and Armada. It's a pretty darn good resume for the Blue Devils. They're 4-0. They'll host North Branch. But Dennis, I want to ask you, does this win put Richmond at the top of the BWAC? And then what's next for Armada?
Yeah, well, I mean, Armada is going to bounce back. In fact, they'll go to Yale this week, and I like the way Yale's playing right now, but I'm not sure I'd want to be the Bulldogs after the Tigers had a loss like that to Richmond. I think they're going to come in a grumpy mood, looking to take it out on somebody, and I think they're going to be very, very physical in that game. I'm more concerned with what's next for North Branch, because, I mean, Armada led the whole game, and you know, they were under a minute away from winning, but they couldn't make the goal line stand. North Branch couldn't make any stands.
Well, all right, let's talk about it then, because Cros-Lex, a 48-7 win over North Branch. North Branch was the favorite going into this game. North Branch was 2-1. Cros-Lex was 0-3. And Cros-Lex unloads on North Branch, a much, much needed win, let alone how they did it. What did you make of this game? Because, all right, maybe some of the Pioneer faithful saw a win coming. I don't think anyone, even the most fanatic Pioneer football fan, saw a 41-point win.
No, you know, and neither did I. I was surprised by the score. Did I think there was a chance Cros-Lex could win this game? Yeah, about 25%. And
that's probably being generous.
Yeah, and I thought 75% North Branch was going to hand Cros-Lex their fourth straight loss. Pioneers needed it to have any hope of a season this year, and they went out and got it. Interesting, I had a BWAC coach tell me that Cros-Lex run defense is actually one of the top 3 in the league, he thought. And what does North Branch do? They run the ball. What has been Cros-Lex bane? Teams throwing the ball against them in their 3 losses. So maybe this was just a good matchup for Cros-Lex. But I was stunned that it was 48-7.
So for Cros-Lex, they started off 0-3. To make the playoffs, they basically had to go 6-3. Now, you can't win all 6 in one night, but they took a big first step. They'll go to Almont, and we'll talk about Almont in a moment. I mean, they took care of business against Algonac 42-22. It was 38-6 at one point. But they got to go get a win there. And if they win that game, now you're looking at it saying the Pioneers have a chance to run the table. But they've got to go to Almont and get that win.
Yeah, and you said it last week, game at a time. Deal with North Branch first. Well, they did. Now they've got to deal with an Almont team that's been scoring a ton of points. But again, what's Almont's strength? Running the football. And I think Blake can throw. Blake was actually 4 out of 5 against Algonac, and he threw a touchdown pass. So they'll sneak it in, but they may have to double their pass output if Cros-Lex run defense is as good as I've been told.
And North Branch, as I mentioned earlier, they go to Richmond. That backs up against the wall for North Branch. Listen, at the beginning of the year, this wasn't supposed to be the toughest game on the schedule, and it might be. Richmond's defense can stop the run. They are physical. They fly around. Big spot for North Branch, but for Richmond, it's a new challenge because they've been chasing for the last 5 years. Now they're kind of being chased with them in Almont. They're the hunted. Different mentality for Richmond. How do you follow up a huge win at home, at homecoming against the team that desperately needs a win?
See, this is a tough game for both teams because it can be a trap game for Richmond. You're sky high about beating Armada. And again, I said it on the podcast. Don't make it a statement, make it a speech. And the way you make it a speech is by following it up and beating another good team in North Branch. And now it's North Branch who's looking at their season going, we need to beat Richmond. Not only is it important in the league, but if we want to make the playoffs and not be the odd team out again this year, we got to win this game and we got to get those Richmond playoff points. So this will be interesting. Again, North Branch runs the ball. I think that's Richmond's strength on defense. And Richmond can throw the ball. And I think North Branch secondary took a hit against Cros-Lex last week.
Yeah, and Richmond's been able to be multifaceted. If they need to run it, they can. If they need to pass it, they've shown that ability too. Another game that was very entertaining out at Yale Park. Yale beats Emily City 14-12 thanks to a goal line stand in the fourth quarter. Yale has now set themselves up. They can be thinking playoffs because this was a big win for Yale.
See, this is also how the Cros-Lex win kind of screws things up. Because I was looking at it as the winner of this game really had a good path to getting into the postseason, but that was based on, well, Cros-Lex might not have any wins by the time they get to that game. Cros-Lex got a very important win, and that might now be back to being a tough game where you're not necessarily the favorite. Yale got the win. I think that's a big win. I think that's a very damaging loss for Emily City. And it's Yale now that's got to look at their schedule and go, where can we get 3 more wins? And I think there's at least 2 there. But now I'm not so sure there's a third one, but we'll see.
So what are the Yale Bulldogs? Because, 2 weeks ago they get shut out by Richmond 21-0. Holding Richmond to 21 is actually looking like a pretty good performance. Then they have a track meet with Almont where Almont gets a pull-away touchdown at the end of the fourth to win by 2 scores. And then you get back into a rock fight with Emily City. What is the actual Yale Bulldogs? Because I have no idea.
Yeah, and I'm kind of in a similar boat, but I think they're better than I anticipated them being this year. And I'm actually not disappointed with their effort through 4 weeks at 2-2. Because I thought there was a chance they'd be 1-3 or 0-4, but they have gotten 2 wins, and they have surprised me in the 2 games that they haven't gotten wins.
And then Emily City, they fall to 1-3. They'll get to go back home as Algonac comes to town. It's actually a game Emily City's won the last handful of years. It's been a while since Algonac's knocked off the Spartans. That's a bounce-back game at home, and one I think they need to win to continue to grow the program where we think it can go.
Yeah, it's been tougher for Algonac. Of the 3 teams that have been at the bottom of the BWAC the last couple of years, they're the one that has progressed probably the least. After a week 1 win over Mooney, which we now look back and go, well, everybody's been beating Mooney like that. And mind you, they have a gauntlet the first 3 weeks of the league season, but they really weren't competitive with any of those teams.
No, and then just an interesting matchup. Armada goes to Yale. I think Armada's going to be a little annoyed at that loss. So Yale's going to have to play their best game, but another chance for Yale to really prove themselves of being maybe a top half team in the league because they get it at home, and I'm really happy Yale gets it at home for the Bulldogs.
Well, I mean, 2 years ago, strange things happened at Yale Park. If that happens again, Yale's going to make the playoffs.
Yes, absolutely.
But again, I'll best describe Armada this week as an angry orange planet.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Yale's going to have to play a good game. Let's go through the thumb real quick. In 11-man, Harbor Beach did what they were expected to do, 51-8 over Vassar.
Yeah. They were gonna roll there.
Ubley beats Marlette 42-22. It was close for a half, and then Ubley pulls away in the second half.
Yeah, and again, I think Ubley was going to do that. I'm disappointed. After week 1, I had hopes for Marlette, but Marlette doesn't look like they're going to be very good this year.
And then Sandusky hands Burton Bendel their first loss, 28-20. Sandusky gets a win in the non-conference against what is, I will at least give, a decent opponent.
Yeah, the problem for Sandusky is they're going to end up being the 4th best team in the white, but you know what? That's still might be good enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, Lakers, Cass City, and Millington are all in that league. Those are all really good teams.
And they've been knocking each other off.
Yeah, those are all top-tier teams that have state title aspirations. In 8-player, Deckerville with a big 33-20 win over Brown City.
Yeah, it was at Deckerville. I kind of had a feeling that the Eagles were a little more battle-tested for this one, but now Brown City's battle-tested because they come right back and they have a huge game with Kingston this week.
All right, K-Pac with a statement win over Bad Axe, 52-12. K-Pac not quite ready to be in the top tier of that league, but I think they can handle themselves against non-state title contenders.
And again, there's a chance, an outside chance, with if they win the games they're supposed to win, K-Pac might sneak in. They've got a huge game this week with Dryden because Dryden's kind of in the same boat, and they've won some big games this year.
Dryden's 3-1. They just beat Memphis 56-19. Big win for Dryden over a struggling Memphis team.
Yeah, and Memphis is going to continue to struggle all the way up until week 9, when then I think they'll probably put it to CPS.
Bay City All Saints handed Peck their first loss. Looks like All Saints will take the big thumb red, 49-12. Peck's a pretty good team. I think Bay City All Saints is a state title contender.
Yeah, it went from, we looked at this game and we said, okay, these are the 2 best teams. So how much of a separation is there? And it turns out there's a lot of separation. But you know what? There's a lot of separation between Peck and the rest of the league.
Looks like it. North Huron beats CPS 68-21, and Caseville puts up 68 as they beat New Haven Merritt 68-34.
Yeah, and actually that's 2 wins for Caseville.
Yes, it is.
And they'll get their 3rd this week.
There's not a lot of seasons where Caseville's won 3 games.
No.
So that'll do it for this week's episode of the Get Stuck on Sports TV edition here on Thumb Coast TV. This week, Dennis is at the Crosstown Showdown. Get Stuck on Sports Stream 1, 7 o'clock kick, 6:30 pregame. I will be at Richmond for Richmond and North Branch. Same time, 6:30 pregame, 7 o'clock kick on Get Stuck on Sports Stream 2. For Dennis Stuckey, I'm Brady Beedon. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.